on about your experience growing up with Christianity, or sorry, if
Mm-hmm.
it's not Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
tell me
No,
about your,
it was.
okay, all right, your
Because that,
experience with
mm-hmm.
religion and religiosity. Tell me about that upbringing as a child, as a
Okay,
youth.
so I first have to start with I went to Catholic school. I went to Catholic school from kindergarten to eighth grade. But I was a Baptist. So my family, um, we had a Baptist church that we went to. It was the family church, one we all kind of grew up in. So being in a Catholic school, but a Baptist background, I wasn't allowed to participate in um in what do you call it? The body and blood of Christ. We weren't allowed to do
Communion.
that. We weren't allowed to do communion. The thing you do at 12, the Holy Communion, where
Mm-hmm.
they do their rites of passage. We weren't allowed to participate in anything that had to do with the Catholic ways of worship because I had a Baptist background. Um, and so I want to name that only because what that felt like at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 was that everyone else was entitled to this body and blood of Christ. But you guys, y'all stay in your row. You don't get to participate. And this is the lens, in which I started to really formulate the way I understood the world. We did religion studies, so everything I knew about God came through, my Christian lens through these religious classes that I've been taking from first grade through eighth grade. Um, Placehold that because that's important. Um, but raised in the Baptist church, where it's all Black, right? And I do want to name that being although most of us in the school were either Black or Hispanic, um, very, very, very few white people that I went to Catholic school with, because I'm still in the hood, I'm still in Yonkers. Um, very few of us were white. So I went to this school here. But in my community, it was a very different type of like way we praise its music, is, the pastor, catching the Holy Spirit, the collection plate going around the whole nine. And here you could drink, have the body and blood of Christ, right? We did that every first Sunday, and it was grape juice, not wine. I don't know if it was ever wine over there, but that's what they told us. But we got grape juice, and we got the little wafer, and it was very communal. Everyone was able to participate. Um, Another main difference that I want to note was growing up in the Catholic Church, there was a statue of Mary. And so as we learned our prayers, right, we learned our Father, prayer, but there was also the Hail Mary where you could go and you could actually pray to her. She actually sat to the back of the church in my mind when we would go to church services throughout the day, but she sat towards the back, and I would often see the nuns like sitting there with their beads and they would do the Hail Mary prayer in front of her. We didn't have that in the Baptist church. There was no reference to this female or divine feminine energy. So we just knew her as the Mother Mary. And what I grew up understanding from that was that, because I still, even though I went to school with Blacks and Puerto Ricans, I still associated this with whiteness. All the nuns, all the fathers were all white. What I learned was that we needed to be pure and clean and holy like Mary, right? But in our church, it was like, you know, not that. It was not that. It was life that came together on Sundays and we praised. So I didn't learn that from being in the Baptist church. I didn't learn that sense of feminine pride or um, anything in that alignment that had to do with who I was as a female in the Baptist church. I only knew we weren't like Mary. So that's kind of like my foundation. somewhere around college, I rejected it all. I think somewhere in here is because somewhere I learned they lied about Santa Claus, and that devastated me. I was like, oh, big people lie to us, and so I couldn't really make sense of this concept of God as I got into my college years, and I just figured, well, they lied about Santa, they must be lying about this dude too. And so I rejected it all. I just claimed atheism and just was like, y'all is fools, and I'm gonna keep it moving, and I'm gonna be grateful for myself because that's all I know to be true. And that kind of stayed with me right up until um, I was pregnant with my eldest son. Yeah, somewhere around there, I had a really good friend uh, who I would talk to because I would read a lot. I would read a lot. I was real conscious, Black consciousness, and um, understood as much as I knew I needed to understand at that time. But it was all very confusing. I couldn't piece things together. And I had a friend of mine say to me, because we was working together, he called me Scott at that time. He's like, yo, Scott, if you would just like accept God, like all of this would make sense. And I'm like, I forgot, like y'all, that's for y'all suckers. I'm like, I'm gonna keep it moving. But literally, and I was still pregnant with was I pregnant with my son still? Can't remember if I had him or not already, but if I did, he was still a baby. I remember thinking, it was just a thought. Well, what if I did accept this God? All this clarity just came flooding in. All the things that I had been learning and thinking I understood start to become clear. And I realized I was a baby in this, that it wasn't about what anybody else had taught me, that something new was happening in me, and this was a new relationship. And I was being spoon fed this new information from within. That's been my journey, and it's grown since then, but that's where it began. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. So I'm curious about um it sounds like again there's this departure from maybe a religious construct,
Hmm.
Catholicism or Baptist level Christianity, and um you described yourself in a way, I don't remember the word you just used. I think it wasn't revolutionary. It was like consciousness,
Black
I think.
consciousness, yeah.
Yeah, Black.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I'm curious about how that consciousness emerged, and then how it, like, what relationship the consciousness had with religion, or spirit. Like,
Hmm.
where did this thing emerge? And then how did it interact with your religious beliefs? Or was the
Hmm.
consciousness what prompted the atheism? Like, how did, tell me about
And
that
I,
a little
I
bit
want to
more.
say, yeah, I don't know if I have a pinpoint, but I can remember my freshman year of college. I took
Mm-hmm.
I want to say it was a Black Studies course, and it was a
Mm-hmm.
African American music or something to that effect. But I'm reading things I had never heard of. I had never heard, like, I don't think I knew who Malcolm X was, or at least what I knew about him was he was bad and Martin Luther King was good, right? There wasn't any context behind the thought process. Was like Martin Luther King is good, Malcolm X is bad. And I think somewhere in here I started to learn about different individuals who really had a voice, who made a difference, and who spoke about Blackness in a way that wasn't derogatory or um, something you didn't want to be. It was something you wanted to embrace. And I remember thinking, like, why I never learned none of this in school? Like, why am I in college, hearing about names like Frederick Douglass or Harriet Tubman? Like, why I don't know this? Like, why wasn't this taught to me? What part of my story don't I know? I don't know any of this, right? And so, growing up in New York, like there's so much exposure, there's so much to see, like being in Harlem. Um, I lived outside of New York City. I lived in Yonkers, born and raised. So like going to the city was always like cultured. Like you knew you were going to see Black people, like, cultured Black people. Something you didn't really get in Yonkers. Yonkers is a pretty close knit, like everybody know everybody's business kind of space. But here you got this kind of culture. So there was ways to take what I was learning, and I was going to school in the city. There was ways to take what I was learning and actually feel this integration. Like you could go to a Schomburg Center and like read more. It's like, wow, this exists. You could go to Harlem Week or to Grant's Tomb and see stuff that allowed you to feel proud. And then rap music around this time was, more conscious. You had a Poor Righteous Teachers. You had like Queen Latifah speaking about, who you calling a bitch and UNITY. And you just had this more conscious brand Nubian. You had this conscious way of understanding yourself. So the hip hop world was also embracing this Black consciousness, this awareness that we uh, are connected. I want to note too in this space, somewhere around here, I wrote a paper on Nubia. It was 20 years later when I went to Africa that I even remember that I had wrote this paper because I'm in Nubia and I'm like, I have no idea what this place is or where it is. And I'm like, oh wait, found this paper from like 20 years earlier. And then it clicked, oh yeah, brand Nubian. Like, yeah, we was talking about this already. So that's what I mean when I say Black consciousness. There was this awakening kind of information that they didn't teach us in school, that you learned outside of school.
And how do you think that it played into your religiosity or not? Like how what kind of relationship did the learning and the consciousness and the information that you were
Hmm.
digesting and things that you were now being made aware of, how did
Hmm.
that or did it have any effect at all on your
Absolutely.
religious or
Hmm.
divine beliefs?
hmm It sent me seeking because I knew now like there was more to understand. So somewhere around here, I think it was everything. I was like, okay, what's the 5%ers teaching? Oh, okay, I want to be a 5%er. But I always knew and always heard, you're not going to stay here. This is just for information. So I remember that. I was like, okay, I want to study, 5%ers. Then it was like, oh, we got to turn to Islam. And then I'm turning to Islam. And there was always something within the context of what I was learning that was my out. You know, um, at one point it was like, I'm going to dip right back into understanding Christianity. But even that, I couldn't stay. Then it was, I think at one time I even entertained the Mormons. Probably because they knocked on my door and I let them in. It's okay, what y'all got to say, and so listen to them as well. And I think I went and I started studying with the Brahmins, um, um, with this
What were you looking for at that time, Dion? Like what was it that
community. I
okay,
wanted
community.
to find that spiritual, yeah, and I want to say community because even though I grew up in Yonkers and it was what it was, Yonkers is that's another study in itself. But I really think I was looking for a community that I could say, okay, this is the box I belong in, and I fit, and I belong. And I always knew you're not fitting in any box. It was just something I always knew, but just wanted to fight because I remember every time it was time to move on for another religion, especially when I had reintegrated myself into Christianity. And I thought I found this beautiful, like, Christian family. And when Spirit said, nope, it's time, I remember bawling, like, why can't I stay somewhere? Why can't any one of these places be my home? Why can't I find that? Even with the Brahmins, I studied with them for a while. And when it was time to pull out, I'm like, no, I love them. They sound so beautiful. Can I stay here? And it was like, no. And so I'm like, what am I doing with all of this information? But none of it like holds me or sustains me.
That's
And they
yeah.
gave me permission in the end to just say, okay, just be you. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
does that mean to just be you, to know yourself and all of this be knowledge and information, uh, I felt lonely, to be honest. It didn't feel connected. It just felt lonely. Felt like I
Yeah.
was knowing things that um, I was privy to through this space of remembrance, but nothing to latch on to say, okay, this is home.
Mm-hmm. Now,
Yeah.
now, do you feel like throughout the journey you have found things that do belong to you? Are there things that you would say belong to you presently? And if so, tell me about what does belong to you.
Presently, so that would bring us probably up to date. Because I do
Mm-hmm.
want to name too that somewhere between this Black conscious awakening, I got married, I had a family, I started going to school, I moved. And somewhere in there was like almost I went to sleep. It was like all the stuff I was knowing, it it wasn't like it wasn't ready to cook. It was seeds, it was just seeds being planted. But I really feel like I forgot all of that. I just became a mom and a wife. And it was probably not until 2020 that like everything, with the whole George Floyd, this anger arose in me. And I'm like, kill them all, burn it down. I'm like, who is this? That's not me. I'm like, who is that? And it was like, yeah, I was like, what is going on? And I could remember watching the news and just like, yes, like let it burn, like do it, like get. And I'm like, okay, we need to leash her. Who is this? Um, and this is at the time when people were protesting and marching. I'm like, we're not protesting. We're not walking. That hurt my feet. What do we need to be doing? Where do we need to be? But something got to happen because this anger inside of me don't even feel like mine. And then I started writing. I started writing it and finding that space of release in writing. That hit soft. And I was like, okay. And somewhere in here, not even so. I remember it was my birthday. It was my birthday. Um, I want to say 2020, 20. Yeah, it had to be 2020. Uh, that I was just standing outside and it was like totally dark outside. Um, like I'm like, why there no stars and where's the moon? It's just pitch black and I'm out on my back deck and I have my music in and this is how I'm spending like this time on my birthday, like literally ending my birthday. And this song comes on, a very special song that I knew was my dad. My dad is on the other side. And I'm like, oh my God, like he's talking. I knew it. I knew it was just a disruption of space and time. And I knew it was my dad. And I'm having this very intimate experience with my dad on the other side, which was my first awareness of ancestors. Had no idea. Other than that, it was like, that's, devil worship, don't touch that, ghost stuff. But it was my first awareness of what that even meant. And then once I caught that, a whole nother journey started. It was like I learned to follow his voice. I learned to know when it was him. I knew it was him. Like there was no question or doubt in my mind. And then that's when I started doing this work here in my community with this burial site, which is a historical African and Native American burial site. Um, I started doing some work here.
Mm-hmm.
This is where this anger was starting to kind of find its flow in a more natural, more harmonious way. And in that I met a Yoruba like priest who began to like teach me. And somewhere in there, like learning about the different Orisha, I discovered like my mother, she came clear. Oh yeah, she came so clear, like the day we really began to do the work. Um, at the burial site, there was a tornado that dropped a tree smack dead in the middle. And there are all these markers there that show where there are um, bodies interred, but this tree falls and hits none of them. as if to say, I'm here. And then it happened outside my house where the same thing happened. Like literally, it was a full moon day, and it was the day I was doing my reading on Oya and learning about like hers and feeling so connected and tearful. And um, it was like this windstorm hit and no rain. It was just a windstorm. Electricity hit the tree. Big tree fell in the middle of the road where like Con Ed had to come and saw it up. And all thing that was left was this big star and her just saying, see me, know me, I am here. Um, and again, I have this ancestral connection. So I'm trusting this. I'm trusting what I'm reading and what I'm seeing and what's happening in the moment is real. And yeah, this is how it all began. And from there, it was like I started studying with a brother that I used to dance with from Guinea, who was teaching me how to pray. He was Muslim and teaching me. I'm like, oh yeah, my ancestors. He's like, no, only God, right? And he was just telling me, no, no ass, just God. And I'm like, okay, I guess I needed to hear that. Because even though I'm in a space now where I believe in God, I'm like, but what this God thing ever really did for me? So my relationship was still pretty broken. I'm like, I'm in this space where I believe, but not trusting. And in this space of just being in this connection with my father, and now feeling guided by these mothers. And all I kept hearing was keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. As I've started really learning the stories of the Orisha, it also took me to understanding a little bit more about like this Greek mythology. And then I don't think I started learning about um, like Kemet until I went to Egypt. Because I know once I went there, I had no idea what I was about to experience. I had no idea what I was going to learn. I just know. And I keep looking at my ear because at the time I had my dad's earring in my ear. So I kept feeling like literally he was talking to me in my ear. Um, um, I just kept hearing him like go there. And I'm like, Egypt? Like, what little girl, like, what is this little girl from Yonkers doing going to Egypt? Like, that's way too big, daddy. What are we talking about? Like, no, can't do that. But just ease gave me the clearance to go. And I had no idea what I was going to. Funny thought, I was 50 years old when I went to Egypt. I literally spent my 50th birthday standing on the pyramids. And it was in 2021, so it was right after COVID, so there's no crowd. By myself. I'm by myself standing on the pyramid. I'm like, how did this little girl from Yonkers get here? What are we learning? What are we doing? But I remember driving, we were driving to the Valley of the Kings, and my tour guide at the time, because that the first time I went to Egypt, I was a tourist, says, oh, that over there, that's the place where um, Moses went up to Pharaoh to say, let my people go. I'm like right there, like we just gonna drive by it, you know, like that's just something that we drive by to the next piece. He's like, yeah, and he's telling me like different spaces and times and things that are 3,000 years old. This is when I first realized when that time didn't begin with Jesus. I'm taught from kindergarten to eighth grade through the Christian lens. I've always learned that time began with Christ. 50 years old when I finally had this disruption of time. Blew my mind. And so from there, I was like, okay, what don't I know? And everything after that first trip to Egypt, everything just came through spirit. It was just like I wake up and I was like, who the heck is Ptah? I have no idea. Am I even saying it right? And I'd have to read about it. And it was like, you don't know about Isis. I'm like, who the hell is Isis? So I'm learning this by these just messages that are coming through in my sleep. It's like you need to learn about Orisha. I woke up, there was this whole book on the whole history of um, the Orisha. Can't find it to this day. Have no idea what it is. I've started searching for it. Don't know where it is. Can't find it. Read this whole thing. I remember waking up from morning to night reading it. So just starting to immerse myself in this knowledge and information that's just coming through, like just channel through.
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah,
wanted to
so
ask you this question, and thank you. That's a very rich narrative, so compelling, of this journey, so many twists and turns
mhm.
and different arenas. I wanted to ask you this, and then we're gonna close part one and
Okay.
probably do a part two. But I wanted to ask you about like the practices that are more or less central to your life right now. Like, do you feel like you have a right to claim these practices? You mentioned,
Absolutely.
yeah, you mentioned some Orisha, you mentioned um some ancestral, veneration. Given how far removed you are from the continent, how do you navigate that space, being so far removed, and your right to claim these practices as your own?
So as you're speaking, I have my candle toya burning. I have my candle to Imanja burning. I have my candle for the ancestors burning. I have my candle for manifestation burning. I have my sacred container candle burning. My grandmother's on my altar. Um, my picture of Oya and her prayers on my altar. My stones are here. My feathers are here with my dad's earring. Um, um, in my statue with the feather. That's where the earring is right now. Um, all of this is spirit. Like I didn't say, okay, how should I make this love? Like this is the communication that happens like through me and tells me this is who you are. Like you don't need to fit into a box and say this is I'm like this box is going to tell you get rid of all of this stuff or it's going to say you got to practice it this way, right? um and that has never been my journey. My journey has always been just be you. um this is just me, right? I don't profess to be a priestess of Oya or a priestess of this or anybody. This is just how they came to me. This is how they spoke to me. These are how my divine mothers came and revealed. That's probably part two, to really talk about how they came to help me understand and to repair this relationship with, I don't even necessarily call it God anymore. I sometimes just say my dad or dad, mom, because it just feels like home for me. But can't nobody tell me this ain't mine. It, like this came from here. Like this didn't come from a building or sitting down and it's lessons. This came from just remembrance and love and communion. And yeah, like yeah. I'm not. I don't even entertain that. Someone to come in and say, "Ugh, like, I don't think your opinion or is required." You know, yeah, I'm good with who I am right now. And absolutely, I claim all of this. Every drop, every drop. I don't say others can't, and I don't say you get it wrong or that this way of teaching is wrong. Whatever works for you is your portal, whatever way spirit decided to speak to you and tell you the truth. This is my truth. So yeah, I claim all of my truth unapologetically.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.